how to stand out in the application process. Add this to your CV. In this video, I'm going to cover one thing you can add to your CV to stand out in the application process, exactly what it says on the tin. Just before we get into that, let me introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name's Owen. I'm a degree apprentice. I help people get degree apprenticeships in the engineering, technology, and finance industries. Here are some of the people I helped last year get degree apprenticeships at companies like JLR, HSBC, Amazon, Bank of England, KPMG, just to name a few. Okay? So let's get into this video. What is this one thing which you can add to your CV, which is going to help you to stand out in the application process? It is webinars, okay? So why should you add webinars? Well, the first thing is if you add webinars, you go and do webinars, it's going to give you lots of industry knowledge. You're going to learn lots of things, okay? But on top of just learning a lot of things, which you'll be able to demonstrate in your application in the interviews, you're also going to learn a lot of soft skills, okay? And you're going to develop these soft skills and you'll be able to demonstrate these soft skills. So soft skills are these sort of things like communication, collaboration, growth mindset, proactivity. It's these traits that you have as a person, as opposed to like sort of technical skills, hard skills, like, oh, I can do CAD, I can do Excel, I can use this specific software. Soft skills are about you as a person, teamwork, that sort of thing. Doing these webinars is going to show key soft skills like you're committed to continual learning, you have a growth mindset, you're proactive. It's going to show you have time management skills, because on top of doing your normal responsibilities, doing your schoolwork, maybe you've got a part-time job, maybe you do this sport, you're also finding time to complete these webinars as well. Okay, so it's going to show you lots of time. It's going to show lots of soft skills which the recruiter will see in you, and they'll be impressed by them. Okay, and it'll make you look like a good candidate. And the final thing is, not many people actually do these. Okay, so things like work experience, online courses. I think a lot of people know to do these at this point. Okay, I've talked about them a lot. But webinars, not too many people talk about or actually do, because they seem kind of miniature. Because it's like, okay, yeah, do a work experience. Everyone understands at this point they should probably, where possible, get a week's work experience, or at least like 1 day's work experience or something like that, right? Or at least do like one virtual work experience thing. Fair enough. But a webinar, this is like 30 minutes, 1 hour or whatever, of just like a couple of people on a call talking about what they do, some projects, talking about an industry, a specific thing like that. Okay, so it seems kind of like small and tiny. So a lot of people just don't even bother. Okay, but it is useful. You're going to learn so much knowledge, like specific, very industry relevant knowledge that no one else is going to know when you're going to be able to demonstrate in your interviews and applications. But then it also has those soft skills. Okay, so this is why this is going to make you stand out, just doing this step here, doing webinars on top of everything you're already doing. Okay, so here are a list of opportunities which are available right now, and I'm going to put this Notion document in the description below, so you can just go to the description below, and if there's any opportunities which interest you, there's some webinars here, you can just go and click in the description, then come and click on the webinar which interests you. So I've grouped it into different sectors. So in terms of engineering, aerospace, if you want to do aerospace, you can have a look at some of these webinars here. There's one by SpaceX, one by Airbus. Like having big companies on the webinar, again, is really good for your application. Okay, because if they see a big name on your CV, it's like, okay, that's interesting. So say you're applying to some tech degree apprenticeship, and then you say you've done a webinar with Amazon. It's like, wow, this guy's done a webinar with Amazon, one of the biggest companies in the world. It looks very good. Okay, and the second thing is, if you're applying to a specific company and you mention their own name, so let's say you're applying to Amazon and you say, I've done an Amazon webinar, recruiters have told me it's almost a guaranteed past the next stage. Okay, obviously if the rest of your application is a whole load of rubbish, then it's not going to work. But if you have a good, solid application for the rest of it, and then you mention their own name, you've got a very, very good chance. So for example, if you're applying to Amazon, do an Amazon webinar. If you're applying to Airbus, do an Airbus webinar. Because then you can say that company's own name and say, I've done a webinar with you already. Okay. If you're interested in automotive, these are some good ones here. A lot of the stuff in automotive at the moment is to do with electric cars. Okay, so if you can do some webinars about electric cars, powertrains, that sort of thing, then that's really good. And then coming back to aerospace as well, these ones are on space, but I'll talk about later how you can find your own webinars. Another thing to look for in aerospace and sort of like planes and that sort of thing is things like sustainable aviation fuels, electric planes, hydrogen planes. That's a good bit of research you can do there. And then civil engineering, this one's a really good one here. Institution of Civil Engineers, mentioning climate change. So a lot of companies, especially in the engineering sector, care about sustainability. So if you can say you did a webinar about how to be sustainable within civil engineering, that's going to show you're going to be a sustainable civil engineer, which just shows that you're going to help them, that company, with their sustainability goals. So it makes you look a really good candidate. So 100% civil engineering, and probably, to be honest, all types of engineering mention sustainability in there somewhere. And these are some of the ones here which you can check out as well. Moving on to technology, a lot of fields you can do these in. I would strongly recommend doing something in artificial intelligence, okay? Because artificial intelligence, it's basically blown up. It's obviously been around for a long time, but it's blown up since ChatGPT, which I want to say is November 2022 or January 2023. I think that's when it came out. It was something like that. Since then, artificial intelligence has blown up. So there's probably like Google have their own AI, everyone has their AI chatbot and all this sort of thing. So you want to make sure you've done an artificial intelligence sort of webinar. Okay. So these are some ones you can do here on ethics. This one's one you can do where someone's talking about artificial intelligence. And also when it says semis, that's talking about semiconductors. Semiconductors is actually something that is really relevant to the automotive industry. So again, that's another one. Maybe if you see this one about semiconductors and you're interested in JLR, for example, go and do that webinar so you can talk about semiconductors, because that is very relevant to JLR. Just a bonus tip for you there. AI at EY, so if you go into finance, but you're sort of doing a tech degree apprenticeship at a finance company, you can do this one here. Again, sustainability. A lot of these tech companies, as well as engineering, care about sustainability. So if you can do a sustainability webinar, perfect. And then quantum computing. So companies like IBM, they are sort of leading the field in quantum computing. So if you understand quantum computing, how it works, you know a bit about it, that's going to look really good in your application. Now, if you're applying to finance degree apprenticeships, the first one I'd recommend doing is actually watching Wolf of Wall Street, because that's going to be a... I'm joking. Don't watch Wolf of Wall Street. That's... No, don't do that. That's probably not a good representation of why you want to get into the finance industry if you go and watch Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, good film, but probably not for your applications. So here are a couple of webinars you can do on investment banking, banking and finance. This one here, again, just like sustainability, another buzzword they like to use is like diversity and all this sort of thing. So if you can just watch a webinar, say you've learned about diversity, you'll get the buzzword ticked off and it'll help you in your application. Especially these companies like EY and Deloitte, all they seem to care about is diversity. So if you just get that thing ticked off, then you're ticked off and you're perfect. And then if you're more focused on accountancy, as opposed to like sort of investment banking, you're more on the accountancy sort of side, some webinars for you here. And then this one, blockchain. This will be an interesting one potentially as well for people doing technology, because this is to do with like crypto. IBM are interested in this sort of thing, and it'll be good for accountants as well in terms of like crypto and how all that stuff works. So there's some webinars for you there. And then finally, I've just linked two other ones which might be relevant for anyone doing like a marketing degree apprenticeship or something to do with business leadership and management. So there's this CEO who did the website called Canva, which I actually use a lot, talking about her basic experience with that. And also if you go into like a sales degree apprenticeship, there's like a sales video webinar you can sort of watch there as well. Okay, so those are some like links I've found. Okay, obviously I haven't watched all of them, but just by reading their description, they seem like good ones there. If you want to go find your own, this is how you can do it. Okay, if you want to like find some more, maybe there's a different field or something else you want to target, it's super easy. Okay, you just need to search like a big company name in your field plus webinar. Okay, and then it'll be there. Okay, so for example, when I was doing this, I just searched Goldman Sachs webinars, and then a whole list of them came up. So this is one of them here. If I come to this one's another Goldman Sachs one here. This one's another Goldman Sachs one here. So it's like you can find these big companies, they'll have a whole list of webinars you can sort of watch on demand. So a lot of these you don't have to join live. They'll just have a whole suite of like on-demand recordings, a bit like, I don't know, like BBC iPlayer, and you can just go and watch a webinar from like 2 years ago. Okay, so another one is like you can go and search like EY webinars. This is how I found this one here. Okay, and then another way you do it is search by industry. Okay, so civil engineering webinar, accountancy webinar. Okay, and go and find some webinars. There'll be at various levels. So one webinar you'll find will probably be too what's the word I'm looking for? Too advanced. Okay, so some webinars they're built for like professionals who are like in the middle of their career. It'll be crazy. Like if you, for example, the engineering webinar I've linked here is like, these are very basic ones. They're sort of introduction to civil engineering sort of thing. I could have linked a webinar which was about building information modeling on civil engineering. I would understand it because I'm a civil engineer myself, but you guys wouldn't because you're just starting. Do you want to start off with like sort of the basic webinars that are sort of just discussions, interviews about sort of general stuff about civil engineering, as opposed to going on to some specific thing like digital tax returns in 2023, how it has affected it or something, because maybe that's a bit too specific. Okay. So once you've done these webinars, how do you actually add them to your CV so they can effectively help you stand out as a candidate? Okay, this is basically the formula you want to do. Okay, and this is, you can add these in your work experience sections or your key achievement sections. If you don't know anything about CV, by the way, just go check out my channel. And I've done videos on CVs in the past. You'll be able to find it. I'll probably put it in the top right if I remember as well. But if you are aware with like the structure of a CV, you got one ready. You know there's going to be a work experience section and a key achievement section. With this webinar, you can put it in either. To be honest, I think when I did it, I sort of put it in just the work experience section, but it doesn't really matter. Just put it in work experience or put it in key achievements. What you want to do is you want to write 3 or 4 sentences basically explaining stuff about this webinar. So you want to start off with, make sure you mention the webinar name, and really important, mention the company. Because half of the appeal with this webinar is literally the company name. It's just being able to say that you've done something with Amazon, or I did like a thing with Goldman Sachs because you did a webinar. The next thing is you want to put the date because you want to show it's recent, okay? And this is with everything on your CV. You need to put the date for everything just so they know how recent was it. Was this like something you did 10 years ago? Was it something you've done 2 months ago? Because they want to know you've been doing stuff recently. So put the date there, October 2024, ready to show it's something you've been doing recently, okay? Talk about what you learned. So this is in terms of like, what knowledge did you learn? Okay, I learned about like how they're using artificial intelligence to revolutionize banking or something. Or I learned about these are the 2 different types of batteries which they put in electric vehicles, okay? Because that's going to just show them that you have some specific knowledge which is going to help them, okay? And then just link to why it's relevant, okay? Just do like a final sentence, okay? Let me go through this example just to explain it. So for example, you can put something like attended or watched the webinar, okay? The future of quantum computing ran by the company, okay? Make sure you, as I said, make sure you put the company name in. Even if it's just some random company or like some maybe it's like some of these webinars, I think it was one of the engineering ones. One of them is from like the US Department of State, right? And it's like, oh, well, I'm applying to degree apprenticeship in the UK. What does that have to do with anything? Well, it doesn't really matter. Civil engineering is the same thing. It's just civil engineering. Just say the US Department of State. That's like a very official title. Shows that like sort of this webinar is accredited by a like big organization. Okay. By hearing from various professionals within the technology industry, I learned about key areas of the future such as cybersecurity and quantum computing, as well as what tech companies can do to be net zero in their operations. Okay, so you see how I'm talking about some things I've learned. You can go into more specifics as well if you want. I've just sort of basically said, oh, I've learned about these key areas, but you can go into more specifics. And I've also mentioned this thing, which sort of ticks off that sustainability thing as well. So it's like you can get in a bit of research, as well as what tech companies can do to be net zero in their operations. Okay, and then you can also add another thing in here. This is relevant because I know that your company is looking to be net zero by 2039. And then you see I've got a bit of research in here. So it's like you can adapt with this structure how you want. I've just given you an example here. Now, linked to why it's relevant, as I said, you can say something like, this is really relevant because I know that your company wants to be sustainable by 2039, and this has given me that passion to help your organization with this challenge, okay? Or you can just say something like, this gives me a solid base of knowledge for starting a degree apprenticeship in digital and technology solutions. This was a good one I've used on a lot of things like courses and work experience and that sort of thing, just because it's a good summary sentence that just tells them why it's relevant. Me doing this webinar is relevant because it means I have a solid base of knowledge, which means I'm going to be able to start contributing value to your organization very quickly after joining. Something like that. Okay. So let me give you 2 examples here. This was basically when I attended like a sort of event. It was like a group of webinars. So as opposed to like a 1 hour webinar, this was like sort of a 3 or 4 hour event where you could go to a couple of webinars. Okay. So that's why I've said here talks from a range of professionals. I talked about some of the things I learned: battery cell design, functional safety of batteries, power electronics. If I wanted to improve this answer now, I would add this linking sentence in here on why it's relevant. So I'd say it's relevant because it's going to help me contribute to your organization quickly. It's going to give me a solid base of knowledge or whatever it is. I'd put that in now. And I just wanted to bring this one up here because I wanted to point you out. If I just zoom in. Why is it so small? Okay. These are basically 2 different CVs, okay? But I've personalized it depending on the company. And this is something you'll have to understand. When you're doing your CV, sometimes you are going to have to personalize what you've written for different companies. So this one was for an automotive engineering company, okay? In which case I just said the thing absolutely fine, okay? This one was actually for Rolls-Royce, which is an aerospace company and also like a marine. That sounds weird. They do like aeroplanes and they also do ships, okay? But this was a webinar essentially on cars. So how do you make it relevant if it's not quite in the right industry? Well, you just put a sentence like, although this application was automotive, this knowledge can be applied directly to batteries in airplanes and ships. So what I'm saying is, although this webinar was about electric batteries in cars, it's going to be relevant to me working at your organization because you also do electric planes and electric ships. Does that make sense? So this is just one to have in the locker and have ready. Whenever you do a work experience, a course, a webinar that's not specifically related, just explain how it can be applied. So let's say you're applying to a finance degree apprenticeship, but you only have engineering work experience, let's say. Obviously, in an ideal world, you'd go and get finance work experience. But let's say you can't get finance work experience, you only have engineering. That's absolutely fine. Still mention all the engineering stuff, but then just say at the end, although this work experience was in the engineering industry, it's given me transferable skills such as communication, collaboration, and problem solving, which I'll be able to apply in the financial industry and provide value to your organization. Like something like that, something along those lines, okay? So that's absolutely fine if it's not completely relevant because you can sort of do a linking phrase like that. I just wanted to show you that one there. Okay, so there we go. That's how you can stand out in the application. Do a webinar, okay? Maybe even do a couple and put them in your CVs, okay? So if you want any extra one-to-one support so you can do better in your application, you can check out my coaching program. I do things like mock interviews and you get unlimited one-to-one messaging with me. So if you are interested in that and doing better in your applications, you can go and click here to go and check it out. It'll also be in the link in the description as well. Okay, so thanks for watching. Hope this has helped, and I'll see you in a bit. Peace out.